Here we go again, motherfuckers. Yeah, another podcast, history podcast, angry negative podcast. And if you're the kind of person that doesn't research or look shit up or fact check, don't take my word for it. You gotta look shit up. And if you don't, get out of here. Get off this motherfucker right now. You see, this channel is not gonna go anywhere. I know that. It's not going to go anywhere. It's not going to get any money from me. I'm just doing this because I like it. Therefore, I get to be as rude as I want because it doesn't fucking matter. I'm just giving some information out. You could take it or go fuck yourself. And now I'm finally in my fucking car and I could speak loudly, unlike the people upstairs that are bang all fucking inconsiderate motherfuckers that bang all fucking day and night. Yeah, I'm not one of those bitches, but I can still yell outside because I ain't disturbing anybody. That's called civil. I'm just sitting in my car watching all these women jogging around me and these people walking around with their dogs. So anyways, like I said, I was going to talk about Christopher Columbus, right? And the bloody shit that was going on. Ears getting cut off, people getting executed, so on and so forth. Here it is. Here's the bloodiness. Supposedly. Right? Let's get into this, motherfucker. So these notes that I'm going to be going over are going to be in reference to the notes that were taken by Hernando Colon, who wrote in reference to Christopher Columbus in the New World in the year 1490 motherfucking 4. That's right. 1494. And if you hate the way I talk, go fucking somewhere else, god damn it. Yeah, maybe you don't think I'm funny or cool or anything like that, or very informative. Like Andy Kaufman said, I'm not a fucking comedian because I don't tell jokes. I'm an entertainer. Right? You ain't entertaining me, bitch. Get on with it. I know a lot of you bitches want me to tell you who the good guys and the bad guys are and who to point the finger at, right? Well, you know, I go through the memoirs and history books and fucking notes and all this different shit to come up with all these different empirical data. And it's not so fucking easy as that, right? I'm going to come up with, I'm going to bring up all the different shit that happened. You know, the food they ate and why they didn't eat it and the places they went to and all this boring shit that surrounded all the other interesting, crazy situations, right? Or you only want to hear the crazy situations. You don't care about the fuck they did. You don't care about their personality, do you? You bitches. A lot of these writings were, writing in letters and they're like little episodes, like little chapters, basically. And I go through each one of those and usually present a full episode, a full chapter like that in an episode. Sometimes I break it up, sometimes not. And Columbus and his men started making their way back to Isabella on March 29th in the year 1494. And they were hungry. And then some mules came and came up to a river that they had to cross. And they couldn't cross it because it was a bad storm. But the mules came with food, and they sent the food to the Fort Tomas so the guys could eat. Yeah, shit you don't care about, but it's shit that happened. Yeah, he didn't think he was a good swimmer, so when it was raining, he's like, dude, let's just sit here, man, underneath this tree. That's what they did. Fucking crazy, isn't it? They wrote it down in their notes and these letters and shit. So we have this information. Not to disregard it, not just to be like, yeah, so the fuck what? Because it's interesting shit. They thought it was fucking interesting. They didn't write it down just because they wanted to they were getting paid by the word, bitch. They wrote it down because it was some fucking interesting situation, right? And during that time where they were waiting out the rain to get over the river to get back to Isabella, they hung out at some Indian villages. It doesn't specify what, but they hung out. And Columbus at the time was saying how he had good relations with natives at the time. So there you go. Christopher Columbus and his men had also at that time they noted that they were eating cassava bread and peppers, which were both considered good and cheap at the time. But I was reading something some weeks ago that I vaguely remember that too much cassava bread can get you sick, and much of anything it will be bad for you, and same with cassava bread. But a lot of, like later I'm going to mention a lot of like Columbus, even earlier episodes, Columbus mentioned how a lot of guys were sick and weak and dying. And there's been some archaeological digs within modern times where they found some grave sites of some 40 men or something like that. And a lot of these men died of scurvy, which is lack of vitamin C. So a lot of these guys, like I mentioned in previous episodes, that Columbus and his men didn't like the food of the natives. They'd rather have bread and wine rather than what the locals were eating. But, back then they didn't have Google. They didn't know shit. They didn't have, like, nutrition values, printed on things. So they didn't know that they were lacking vitamin C, and that's why they were getting scurvy and getting sick. But here it was written down that they were eating peppers, and peppers have vitamin C. So maybe these guys didn't get scurvy and die. Anyways. Well, here, I got some notes on it right here. Cassava has cyanogenic glycosides in it that will kill you if you eat too much of it. So anyways, slow down on the fucking cassava bread, right? It can also cause nerve damage. Nervous bitch. They didn't know any better 500 years ago. You nervous motherfucker, sit down. Yeah, they said a lot of these guys died of scurvy, so it doesn't make a lot of sense because in these writings it says that when they got back to Isabella, a lot of the fruit and vegetables that they planted were growing quickly, like fast. Well, then again, they said a lot of the people had died en route, like taking those long trips from Europe to the Americas, and they didn't know any better about the food that they needed, and so I think a lot of them died from scurvy that way. They said it is written here that the Europeans planted some fruits and vegetables, melons that had grown so quickly that by the time the Christians came back from to Isabella, they had a bunch of these melons. The cucumbers grew within like 20 days. They were like, man, this soil is so fertile. We'll never go hungry. Yeah, you see, I got fucking airplanes going by me now. People are starting to wake up. It's still early morning. There's people walking around, and there's airplanes going by. You're going to hear a lot of that shit in the background. Mal, press pause. Let's see if we can press pause. So, when they came back to Isabella, when they arrived back to Isabella, a farmer had gathered some ears of wheat that they had only planted at the end of January. And now it was the beginning of April at this time. And they had some chickpeas that the Christians grew in the beginning those early days, and they grew larger than batches that were originally grown in their original continent. And on March 30th in the year 1494, the Christians noted how the food grew so fast in the soil in the Americas, and that all the seeds would push just after 3 days and ready to eat in just 21 days. They had fruit stones and that provided vine seedlings and vine shoots that produced tendrils. They gathered unripe grapes in just 25 days. Sugar cane was germinated in just 7 days. Man, they had so much stuff going on there as far as food goes. They weren't just sitting around trying to eat air, dying of scurvy. Well, maybe some of them did. Maybe those archaeologists were correct about that. I mean, we could see here that in those beginning days they had cucumbers and melons and grapes and all this kind of stuff, and they were probably eating fish as well and some kind of pig, right? So they had bacon and bread. They probably had all these types of things. So how are they dying of scurvy? I don't know. Because like when Columbus said the last episode when we were making that trip, they didn't want to eat any of the Native American food, which is noted in modern times as one of the downfalls of the Europeans of Isabella, because the Europeans didn't want to adapt to the Native American food at the time. They didn't like it. So it doesn't make sense. So they were making that trip, and they're like, no, we don't want any of your food. We're going to send some mules back to get some bread and wine. Who the hell wants to sit around and eat bread and wine? On a long trip, rather than whatever food the natives had at the time over there. Whether it was spider tacos or iguana tacos. Who knows? So you guys are ready for the bloody shit here, right? So on April 1st, 1494, the day I jokingly coined White History Month in an earlier episode. Anyways, Columbus was greeted by a messenger on that day in 1494, April 1st. And the messenger came from Pedro Margaret from Santo Tomas. And the messenger came to tell Columbus that the natives were fleeing the area of Santo Tomas and that the chief, a cacique named Canabo, was preparing to attack and burn the fort of Santo Tomas. So it is written. And Christopher Columbus didn't really believe it. He's like, nah, those guys wouldn't do something like that. There's no way, no way. Must be a rumor. But just in case, we're going to send some guys there. Columbus thought it was mostly a rumor, but he knew that the natives were afraid of the horses. And if there was horses near like buildings, there's no way that the natives would get close to those guys, because as soon as they see a horse, they like freak out and run away. And if the horses were in a building, they wouldn't come in the building. It's kind of interesting, isn't it? Oh, you don't think it's just interesting? You just want to know who the good guys are, right, bitch? Yeah, I don't care if the natives were afraid of horses. Fuck you. Just tell me who the good guys are. So anyways, on April 2nd, Columbus had sent 75 more men to Santo Tomas to help protect the fort just in case there was an ambush. He had also some of these men go and construct a road in the area since it was hard to travel there. If you remember previous episodes, I said that when they were eating that bread and the wine on their trip, they had their horses had a hard time getting around. They're like, man, these roads suck here. So Columbus is like, get some paved roads going here, some cobblestone and shit like that. The Indians will love it. But yeah, Columbus was writing up a lot of shit at the time. Like he was building up Isabella, which is one of the first towns in the Americas, European towns, that kind of took a foothold, right? It's just, they had a town square. They had, tons of stone buildings. Some remnants still stand. But it was written here that Columbus drew up all the plans. He was like this superintendent or the foreman or whatever, right? He drew up all the plans to build the city with the central square, and he made a man-made stream of water built off the river in order to bring the water to the town and drive the mills and with the water flow. Because they wanted to run the mills to get the flour, produce the flour. And also, it was hard a lot of the men were weak because of possible scurvy that some of these archaeologists are writing. That Christopher Columbus' son wrote that the population was so weak to make their way to the river for water, so Columbus thought of redirecting the water to them. And run the mills, of course, too. Also. But because of all the guys were getting sick and weak and stuff, Columbus was like, man, it's the air. We got bad air over here. The air depleted the energy of the people and makes them weak. And I immediately thought of Bartolome de las Casas in reference to the natives who died from being overworked and sick. But these early notes of Christopher Columbus were talking about his own European people that were getting overworked and tired because of possible scurvy. So that some archaeologists say now. But I guess you never know, because that's just what they say. It could be one thing or another. Who are you going to trust? Are you going to trust a doctor that says that your little boy can be a little girl and men could get pregnant? Or are you going to trust a scientist that says marijuana is bad for you? Or are you going to trust a scientist that says that marijuana is good for you? Everybody's different. Everybody's built a little bit different. I've been hanging out with this Mongolian woman lately, and I've been vaping for like 12 years or something, and pretty much every day. And she told me she doesn't really know it because I don't really vape around her or smoke. And so she's like, yeah, vaping. She's like, her daughter had a friend that started vaping and then went home and vaped and all of a sudden just dropped dead. And they're like, see, if you vape, you're going to drop dead. And I was like, well, I kind of been doing it for 12 years. She's like, yeah, but the guy died, or the kid died. He's vaped and he's dead now. And I was like, that sucks. How old was he? And I think she said he was like 16 at the time of death. And I was like, yeah, that doesn't make sense. But then again, I knew a guy that smoked cigarettes until he was 72 years old or somewhere around there. And he said he was smoking since he was like 12 years old, smoking non-filter Camels. Then he smoked 2-3 packs a day. I remember when he did smoke, and I remember when he didn't smoke. And he smoked all those decades, and he didn't die of cigarettes. He died of other things when he was like, I think, somewhere in his 80s. But then there's other people that go to like McDonald's and get secondhand smoke and die the next day. And it's like, how is that possible? I mean, the stupid people that say, oh, the secondhand smoke is worse. Well, fucking bitch. Don't you think the people that smoke get secondhand and firsthand smoke? Of course they do. You dumb fuck. Right? But I'm just saying, but that's not the point I'm trying to make here. Like if I'm sitting in my car right now and smoking a cigarette, I'm getting the firsthand and secondhand smoke the whole time. So, if I was in a restaurant smoking, I'd be getting like double what everybody else is getting. So I should double die quicker than everybody else. Anyways, the point I'm trying to make is that maybe some of the guys died of scurvy, and even though there was vegetables and fruits on the islands that they did eat, maybe some guys ate more than others, and maybe some guys just required more and they died anyways. That's a possibility. Some people like Bob Marley could smoke tons of weed all day and just feel good. And then there's other people that seem allergic to weed, where they smoke just like a couple hits of pot and they'll start freaking out. And sometimes I cramp up, like especially when I was younger, building houses, I'd cramp up. Like my legs would cramp up and I would have to eat bananas and whatever had potassium because I had to rehydrate myself and put potassium in me so I didn't start cramping up. But other people didn't have that problem. And they were not eating bananas, but they just had those. They probably just held those. Their bodies probably held those vitamins in them better. I don't know. Everybody's body is different, so maybe a lot of those early Europeans did die of scurvy. Maybe not. But anyways, let's keep moving on this bitch. So Christopher Columbus had sent like some 300 men back to Castile because they were weak. And he's like, you know what? I can't use you motherfuckers. You might as well go back. And then he kept 300 there at Santo Tomas. And here's an interesting note that there was 300 men that were left at Santo Tomas to keep the peace under the order and rule of the Catholic sovereigns. This is where the notes of being obedient to the crown in the New World start to take place. And the specifics that were going on aren't written down, but they said they were there to keep the peace. So however they did whatever they did to keep peace, peaceful times, or peaceful environment, who knows? But there in the Dominican Republic, Columbus himself began to supervise the people to build the mills and to produce flour since they had wheat, but they were low on provisions. Columbus is like, come on, guys, I brought you here, motherfuckers. You got to start working. You got to start doing some shit. Come on, let's go. He's a boss. He's not gonna be like, I know everybody's hungry and everybody just wants to sit around. And if anybody feels like working, just do whatever you like. Work whenever you want. And most of the people were just sitting around. So he had to get up like a boss and be like, get up, bitches. Start doing stuff. So Columbus still tried to push all these guys, and he eventually would send able-bodied people to pacify the people of Vega Real. And then he would keep the master craftsmen and workers at the Santo Tomas to work while sending the others to Vega Real to strike some fear into the natives in order to live with the Christians. And Columbus also wanted his people to learn how to like and get used to eating Native American food and living with the Native Americans on the island at the time. So a lot of these historical writings don't have like a timeline where somebody wrote down a timeline and then elaborated on it. It's basically like they were just remembering like different times and like, oh, this happened at one point, this happened at another point. Oh, and before that happened, this happened. But after that happened, this happened. And it's just like all over the place. And it's just like, what the fuck was going on, motherfucker? So the story goes that Christians were making their way back from Isabella to Santo Tomas. Isabella is like one of the first towns. I think I already mentioned it in the beginning of this episode. And they were building on Santo Tomas. And so when these Christians were making their way and over the river, they were making their way across before they made their way across the river, the Indians nearby were like, hey, give us your clothes and all your stuff and we'll bring it across the river for you and then you can make your way after. And so when the Indians got on the other side with their stuff, the Christians were like, okay, we're going to come and meet you there. And then when they got there, they're like, hey, dude, you took our shit. Give it back. And they're like, nah, man, we stole your stuff. And then they supposedly went back to the chieftain and gave him the Christian clothes and he put on the Christian clothes. And when the Christians came to get their shit back, they wouldn't give it back. And they're like, bitches, we're sitting here naked and you stole our shit. Supposedly that's what happened. So when these guys made their way back, they fucking took some of these, they captured some of these guys, the Kazik and his brother and a nephew of the chief. And they put these guys in chains and then sent them back to Columbus and Isabella. They're like, here's these motherfuckers, what they did to the Christians. Some kind of sick joke. More than a joke, they robbed these motherfuckers. And it was a joke, all in the same. Now this Ojeda that was part of, in control of that area, he had the fucking chieftain's ears cut off and then sent back to Columbus. So yeah, if you remember my last episode where I was talking about the cropping and ears cutting off as punishment, yeah, they were doing that shit then and before that and after it, and they did it to the Indians. So they had Indians' ears cut off and then had these guys sent back to Columbus. Columbus had these guys standing there, and they had a chief from a different tribe. They called him the good chief and the good Indian to come with these guys and to accompany him in chains to Columbus. And so when Columbus had him, he was going to have them killed, executed. And it is said that Christopher Columbus received these men politely, and these guys were crying, and even the chief was crying. And I don't know why they were in tears, but it's written that they were in tears. And what had happened in those very moments to put those guys in tears, or if they knew that they were being executed. And they had convinced Christopher Columbus not to kill those guys. I don't know if it was the good chief that convinced them, or if it was the guy's tears, the captured Indians' tears. Anyways, Christopher Columbus said, take the chains off these motherfuckers. And it set them free. And then as they unchained him, the Indians started thanking Columbus and swearing to him by gesture that they would never break the law again or cause any harm again. Supposedly, that's what happened. So we get these guys' ears getting cut off, then these guys that were going to get executed being let go by Christopher Columbus. Yeah, Christopher Columbus didn't kill these guys. I thought he was a fucking murderer. Where are you bitches getting all this fucking information from? But as soon as like he let these guys go, some other guys came on horse and they're like, hey, guess what? The town where you took these chiefs from, the Canabo and all these guys, that town, the fucking Indians are raising hell over there, and things are going to start getting fucked up over there. And it's like, what? Come on, man, really? It's like, I didn't want to get to this. We just got to get some food, find some gold. We don't want to be fighting people. What the fuck, man? He's like, all right. And I guess at this point, they had captured 5 Christians who were traveling on their way back to Santo Tomas, to Isabella. And so the Christians then went to rescue those Europeans from the natives and scared off some estimated 500 Indians into the woods. And when the Christians made their way back over the river, the Indians came again to fight. But when they saw the horses, they're like, fuck that. The Indians got scared of the horses, and they're like, forget it. You guys can get your Christians back. Fine, whatever. Just keep those weird fucking 4-legged things away from me. So in this episode, we got people's ears getting cut off, and we got people dying of scurvy, and Indians, Taino people getting executed but being let go. In this episode, in early April of the year 1494 with Christopher Columbus. Look that shit up, you bitch. You got Google, you fucking bitch. You can get a Kindle app, bitch. You can go to a fucking library and get a goddamn memoir or fucking notes. Find that shit, look it up, so you can tell your stupid fucking friends that this is what fucking happened on that day. On early April, White History Month. You fucking bitch. It's not really White History Month. I made that shit up. That was a joke from a last episode. I don't know if I put that on YouTube. I don't remember what platform I uploaded that. Because I upload to different platforms some episodes that are exclusive to those platforms, just so I can get people to those, you know. Because if I just uploaded all the same shit, you wouldn't check out the other ones, right? So if I put something exclusively to Spotify, then you'd have to go there to listen or hear it. Or it's exclusive to YouTube, you'd have to go there. Or Patreon, you have to pay for that shit. You're like, fuck that, I ain't paying for this bitch-ass motherfucker talking shit the whole fucking time. Sounds like he's losing his fucking voice, too. Yeah, I'm tired. Every fucking day I wake up, it feels like I never even went to sleep. I'm always so fucking tired. Always. Like a zombie. Anyways. That's going to conclude this episode of Christopher Columbus in Hispaniola, the northern end of Hispaniola, Dominican Republic area. Not Haiti, but Dominican Republic area, northern end. You know, I was by some horses a couple weeks ago out in Morocco. And yeah, we had to feed the horses. And when we got inside the fucking fenced area, like early in the morning, I went through with my camera, with my Canon. I had my Sigma lens on, whatever. And so I'm over hanging out at the fence post, and the horse came up to me and stuck his head over the fence post and started pushing his nose into my chest or my stomach. And I was like, what the fuck? So I got out of the way. I didn't know if the horse was going to bite me or whatever. Then the horse freaked out on me. Like, bitch, you ain't going to be my friend. Fuck you then. That's what I guess the horse did. Then it wouldn't come by me anymore, and I was just taking pictures of it. Then a few hours later, we went to go feed the horse. And then we went inside the fenced area. Then the horse started jumping around me, trying to attack me. Now, this might have been. Now, the owner, one of the owners of the horse was there. And then Jay was there too, which fed the horse. So the horse knew Jay. And the horse just met me, I guess, that day. And so the horse said, fuck you, and started attacking me. It was like real shit. Now, this could have been what happened to the natives at the time. Now, I was cool with the horse. I didn't do shit to the horse, but the horse was fucking scaring the shit out of me. I don't want to go back into that fuck. I've rode horses before, so I know how horses are cool, but that horse was going to attack me. So, what I'm getting at, these Native Americans might have had the same kind of situations with the horses, you know, seeing the same type of situations. So, like, fuck that, we're not getting near those fucking weird, fucking heavy things. 4-legged heavy things, yeah. So it's just interesting. And they had goats there as well. I think all the male goats are gone because the male goats were real aggressive. So yeah, so the natives could be like, what the fuck are they bringing to the island? These fucking strange fucking animals. They might have liked the chicken though, who knows? So the whole purpose of this episode is just to give a day-by-day Christopher Columbus and other Europeans, and colonization, day by day from the beginning on. and just to see like what life was really like at the time, and day by day. So that's it. I hope you hate this episode, and I hope you hate the way I speak about it and present it. I hope you don't subscribe, and I hope you share it with your enemies, and I hope everything goes bad otherwise. Anyways, go fuck yourself. Adios.